right now to disclose any verbiage that they're working through, and they're saying that this resolution, when it does happen, as you intimated, it's probably going to take some time, many hoops to jump through before we get there. It will be the political and legal basis, this diplomat telling me, for the implementation of a no-fly zone. In other words, most likely what they're looking at is the forces of NATO or another nation to actually enforce the no-fly zone, the authorization thus coming from the UN Security Council. So we're still looking at it, down the line a little bit. We know that conversations are happening within those 5 permanent members of the Security Council, as well as the entire body, the 15 members. But right now, we're still in early shakes, as they put it to me earlier today. Shihab.
Meanwhile, a fascinating precedent from the Gulf Cooperation Council supporting outside intervention to support democracy movements in the region. What exactly did the GCC say?
The GCC said that they support a no-fly zone, and this comes out of a meeting in Abu Dhabi with the foreign ministers. There's a mission here, GCC mission to the UN and we spoke with them briefly, and they were aware of it, but they didn't have too much more detail to add from the meeting that was coming out, from the word that was coming out from the meeting in Abu Dhabi. And we know that this is a new mission. It's not a huge voice here at the United Nations, these 6 nations of the GCC, but they came out saying that yes, they are supporting and actually highly encouraging the Security Council to pass a resolution that calls for a no-fly zone over Libya to protect its civilians.
Scott Heidler at the UN, thanks. To other news now, the US president has given the order to resume military trials for detainees at the US prison at Guantanamo Bay. It's the latest acknowledgement that the detention facility Barack Obama had vowed to shut down within a year of taking office will remain open for some time. The US government has been conducting a review of the detainee tribunals there. Despite lifting the ban, the US president did reaffirm his commitment to trying terrorism suspects in US federal courts. We're joined by David Reams. He's a lawyer who represents 20 of the detainees in Guantanamo. Given some of the statements we've heard from various administration officials over the last few months, I suppose perhaps we shouldn't be too surprised about this.
Well, President Obama indicated that he was going to review detention policy. He's been under a lot of pressure to get out a declaration of where he stands on this, and therefore I think he issued his executive order to outline a formal system to preside over his system of indefinite detention that he's already embraced.
So this is a separate announcement there. I mean, so we had the announcement that military commissions would continue, but we also had this announcement that the sort of codification of indefinite detention would also go on now.
Yes, I segued from one answer to another. The fact is that President Obama froze the military commission process in early 2009 when he took office in order to pursue changes in the law that would allow it to be somewhat fairer. And I think that human rights groups in general agree that it's fairer, though still not in compliance with federal law. What's amazing is that after all this time, the government hasn't indicted the 9/11 defendants, who are the most seriously accused defendants. And
so that's where the executive order comes in then, which suggests that those who can't be tried either in a military commission or in a civilian court because perhaps they've been tortured or something can be held indefinitely, and President Obama is now formalizing that process for holding them.
That's correct. And he's formalizing it under a framework that would provide for periodic review by a government agency. Now, the ironic aspect of this is that President Bush established this kind of review mechanism. President Obama set up this kind of a mechanism when he took office, and now this is the 3rd iteration. I have no reason to believe that this new system is going to be any better than the 2 systems that it has already replaced.
Now, I would imagine the administration would argue, look, we have no choice. Congress, for a start, has forbidden us from trying Guantanamo detainees on the U.S. mainland. What choice do they have? And secondly, of course, they have no choice on the other suspects because they were tortured, after all.
Congress has left the president no alternative but to try these detainees in the military commissions. I suppose that it's incumbent upon the president to make the commissions as fair as possible going forward, and the Secretary of Defense still has to issue regulations, and hopefully they will improve the system that already exists, which in turn was an improvement over the system that existed before.
As things stand, though, do you expect actual military commissions to resume, or is it still just the possibility that they will resume?
It depends if the administration charges people, presents charges, and an authority within the commissions approves them for trial. How far trials will actually go is an open question, because in the recent past, the military commission defendants have been pleading guilty in exchange for reduced sentences, and we may never see the procedures actually in operation.
David Reams, thank you very much. And that's all for the moment from Washington. Let's return to Doha.
Now, Tunisia's interim Prime Minister, Baji Qaid Sibsi, has dissolved the country's despised political police force. He has unveiled his new cabinet after a spate of resignations. It's the third caretaker government since the overthrow of Zain al-Abidine bin Ali in January. Nazneen Moshiri has more from Tunis.
It was billed as a new beginning, but the interim Prime Minister Baji Qaid Sibsi admitted the key positions in government will remain the same. The difference now, a promise that not one member of the cabinet will stand in the next election, and security will be a priority.
We wanted it to be a caretaker government, but more importantly, a government which saves the country from this predicament.
One of the first moves of this new government, the dismantling of the so-called political police, filmed here by AlJazeera. A force which harassed and spied on Tunisians for so many years. The Ministry of Interior announcement came on its Facebook page. It just shows you how times have changed in Tunisia. This once hated institution is now using the same social sites which helped in the uprising to get its own message across. It's not clear how members of this once powerful security force will now react. The Prime Minister says this is a dangerous period for the country. His challenge now to take Tunisia to the next election and deliver the democracy people here fought and died for. Nazneen Moshiri, AlJazeera, Tunis.
Egypt's caretaker Prime Minister says restoring security in the shortest possible time is a priority for his government. Osam Sharaf spoke to journalists hours after a new-look cabinet was sworn in. Meanwhile, Egypt's prosecutors ordered the detention of 47 police officers for burning documents at several state security headquarters. Political analyst Samir Shehata says despite appearances, the Prime Minister isn't completely running things.
I think that for many cabinet posts, he's in charge. But I think, and my skepticism is that there are some ministers, for example, the Minister of Military Industries, who's a leftover of the old regime, who's a former general, who's not liked. And he has retained his post, curiously enough. And I think that that's probably a result of the Supreme Military Council saying, you're not going to touch that ministry. He's one of ours, and, that's kind of a red line. So by and large, I think he's got a great deal of discretion. But we can't forget that the Supreme Military Council is still in charge. They are still acting as the executive branch, the president of this country. That's the case when it comes to security.